Being the number 1 overall pick in the NFL doesn't guarantee you success. Whether it's injuries, run-ins with the law, or being fat, this is every number 1 overall pick that failed. Starting with Bo Jackson, and he was a failed number 1 overall pick in an untraditional way. Many people don't know that Bo was actually drafted twice in the NFL, once in the 7th round in 1987, and first overall by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 1986. But Jackson refused to play for the Bucs after he believed the team owner tried to sabotage his baseball career due to an illegal visit with the team. A year later, Al Davis and the Raiders took a flyer on him in the 7th round. They gave him a deal no one would get today: play baseball for the Royals and then join the Raiders whenever the MLB season ends. So Bo treated the NFL like a hobby and still looked like the best player on the field. Despite only playing half seasons, Bo was a human highlight reel. He averaged over 5 yards a carry and earned a Pro Bowl nod in 1990. But just as he was becoming the face of the league, a routine tackle in the playoffs turned into a career-ending disaster.
Bo Jackson has some room. One man to beat him from behind. And Walker, as he made the tackle, had only the one leg to grab, and apparently Bo Jackson, shaken up a bit, has not gotten to his feet as yet. That was a 34-yard run by Jackson.
Against the Bengals, Bo dislocated his hip. He was so strong, he supposedly popped it back in himself, but the force had severed the blood flow to the bone. He was diagnosed with a vascular necrosis, forcing him into a premature retirement from football at just 28 years old. Jackson would return to baseball with an artificial hip, but the NFL never saw him ever again. He remained the greatest what-if in sports history, especially for the Buccaneers. His career could have turned out completely different if their owner didn't stab Bo in the back while trying to get him. This next player arguably had the greatest natural arm talent in NFL history, but for Jeff George, a record-breaking contract and a rocket arm weren't enough to overcome a career defined by conflict. The Colts traded up to the number 1 overall pick to grab the hometown kid, signing him to the richest rookie deal ever at $15 million. His expectations grew sky high after he finished 3rd in Offensive Rookie of the Year voting in 1990. But the hype train derailed fast. In his second year, George went a dismal 1-15, throwing more picks than touchdowns while being the most sacked QB in the league. But after 4 tumultuous years in Indy, he headed to Atlanta for what looked like a career renaissance. He led the Falcons to the playoffs in '95, but the wheels fell off just 3 games into the 1996 season after cameras caught this happening on the sidelines.
Jones and George would get into a heated argument, and they're not talking about Harmon Wage's career.
Jeff George was getting into it with his head coach. George claimed management was mistreating him, but the damage was done. June Jones suspended him for the remainder of the season, and he was released during the offseason. He spent the rest of his career as a high-end journeyman, flashing brilliance in Oakland and Minnesota. But despite leading the NFL in passing yards in '97, he could never stay in one place long enough to build a real legacy. Jeff George remains one of the ultimate what-if stories at quarterback. He had all the physical tools to be a Hall of Famer, but in the NFL, the arm can only take you as far as the locker room will let you go. He was supposed to be the next Emmitt Smith, only faster. But for Ki-Jana Carter, the NFL dream didn't just fade, it snapped before his first real game even started. The Bengals were so desperate for a superstar that they traded up 5 spots to grab the Penn State phenom at number 1 overall. The entire city of Cincinnati thought they had just secured a Hall of Fame anchor for their backfield. Then came the first preseason game. Just 3 carries into his professional life, his entire career changed.
The optimism in landing the best prospect in the draft faded in Carter's first preseason game.
Carter's ACL gave out, and in 1995, an ACL tear wasn't just a hurdle. It was a career-altering disaster. that would rob him of his explosive get-off that made him a legend in college. He missed the entire '95 season, and when he finally returned, he was a different player. The speed was gone, and the injuries just didn't stop. Rotator cuffs, broken wrist, and kneecap dislocations followed. A man drafted to be a bell cow back ended up only starting 14 games in his entire Bengals career. Carter was eventually let go by Cincinnati and attempted to catch on with New Orleans and Washington. He would only tally 1,100 yards and 20 touchdowns in his entire career. He spent more time in the training room than on the field, playing in just 59 games over a decade. Ki-Jana Carter is rarely called a bust because he never really had the chance to fail. He's the ultimate reminder that in the NFL, you're only one bad step away from becoming the biggest what-if in sports history. He was supposed to be the face of a reborn franchise, but for Tim Couch, being the #1 overall pick for the expansion Browns was less of a reward and more of a 5-year survival test that his body eventually failed. Couch was the first of 3 QBs taken atop the '99 draft. His expectations were massive, and he showed flashes of brilliance early, including a legendary walk-off Hail Mary to seal the first win in the new Browns history. Despite a productive rookie year, the expansion roster offered him zero protection. He was sacked 56 times in only 14 starts. But while he battled through broken thumbs and inconsistent play for 3 years, he finally reached his peak in 2002, leading Cleveland to their first playoff appearance of the modern era. Just as he was winning over the city, disaster struck in Week 17 when he suffered a broken leg. So we had to watch from the sidelines as backup Kelly Holcomb threw for 400 yards in a playoff heartbreaker, sparking a quarterback controversy that Couch never truly survived. By 2004, the Browns moved on. Couch tried multiple times, but his arm, wrecked by years of hits and a major shoulder surgery, was never the same. But what makes him even more of a bust is that the Eagles took Donovan McNabb right after him, leaving Browns fans to wonder what might have been if their #1 overall pick had went a different direction. Tim Couch wasn't a lack of talent, he was a lack of support. He gave everything to Cleveland, but the expansion system was rigged against him from the start. Today, he's remembered as the man who took the hits so the franchise could finally stand. And the Browns didn't do much better with their next #1 overall pick in 2000. He was the quiet storm, a defensive end with a 4.5 40-yard dash and the power to anchor a franchise. But for Courtney Brown, the storm never really got a chance to break. Out of Penn State, Brown was considered a can't-miss prospect. So when he put up 4.5 sacks and 16 tackles for loss as a rookie, Browns fans thought they had finally found their defensive legend. That rookie season saw him start all 16 games, showcasing the elite talent that made him the top pick. But in a cruel twist of fate, it would be the only time in his entire career that he would play a full 16-game schedule. From 2001 to 2004, the injury bug became his shadow. Knee problems and other nagging issues limited him to just 31 games over those 4 seasons. The man, drafted to be a generational force, spent more time in rehab than he did in the backfield. The Browns eventually moved on, and Brown tried for one last resurgence in Denver. He had a solid 2005 season with 2 sacks in 14 games, helping the Broncos reach the AFC Championship. But his body had seen enough, and he left the league shortly after, finishing with just 19 career sacks. Courtney Brown wasn't a bust due to a lack of effort or skill, he was a victim of a body that couldn't keep up with his talent. So the new Browns, who had back-to-back #1 overall picks, managed to mess both of them up, and they were both out of Cleveland in just a few years. Michael Vick was a Madden cheat code come to life. He didn't just play quarterback, he revolutionized the position with a rocket arm and speed that didn't seem human, and his career became one of the ultimate redemption stories in the NFL. In Atlanta, he was primetime 2.0. He led the Falcons to the NFC Championship and became the first QB ever to rush for 1,000 yards in a season. He made multiple Pro Bowls, was a finalist for the MVP multiple times, and was a headache for every NFL defense to deal with. And by 2006, he was arguably the biggest star in the sports world. Then it all came crashing down.
As part of a multi-state underground dogfighting operation is a record-breaking NFL superstar, a former #1 draft pick, losing a $120 million contract over dogfights.
Vick pleaded guilty to federal dogfighting charges, losing his career, his fortune, and his freedom. But after serving 21 months in prison and an indefinite NFL suspension, he didn't give up. He set out to prove that he was a changed man. Philadelphia gave him a second chance, and in 2010, the Michael Vick experience returned better than ever. Taking over as the starter, he put up over 3,600 total yards and 30 touchdowns. He didn't just play well, he swept the Comeback Player of the Year award and finished second for Offensive Player of the Year, leading the Eagles to the playoffs. 2010 wound up being the peak of his comeback, struggling with injuries, wear and tear, and overall regression in his later years. He wouldn't start a full season again and retired in 2015. Despite him failing himself early on in his career, he proved that with the right mentality and work ethic, even at your lowest of lows, you can still become one of the best at what you do. He was supposed to be the face of a brand new franchise, but for David Carr, being the first ever Houston Texan felt more like a 5-year gauntlet that broke one of the most promising arms in the league. As a rookie in 2002, Carr wasn't just under pressure, he was a target. Behind a makeshift expansion O-line, he was sacked a staggering 76 times, a single-season NFL record that still stands today. For 5 seasons, Carr did his best to survive a porous line in a struggling roster. By the time he left Houston, he had endured 249 sacks and a 22-53 record, leaving many to wonder if his confidence had been permanently rattled. He sought a fresh start in Carolina, but the bad luck followed him. After taking over for an injured Jake Delhomme, Carr played just 3 games before a back victory knocked him out for the season, effectively ending his days as a viable NFL starter. Carr would spend his final years as a backup for the Giants and 49ers. He never started another game, but he did find a silver lining, earning a Super Bowl ring in 2011 as the backup to Eli Manning, finally getting the hardware his talent once promised. Today, David Carr is a successful analyst breaking down the game he spent years trying to survive. He remains the ultimate cautionary tale. Even a #1 overall pick can't save a franchise if the franchise can't protect him. He had one of the biggest arms the NFL had ever seen, but for JaMarcus Russell, a record-breaking contract and unlimited potential weren't enough to save him from becoming the most infamous draft bust in football history. In 2007, the Raiders front office was a house divided. Head coach Lane Kiffin desperately wanted Calvin Johnson, but owner Al Davis was enamored by Russell's raw power. So the Raiders took the QB at #1 overall, setting the stage for a clash that would eventually dismantle the franchise. Russell immediately held out for a massive 6-year, $68 million contract, missing all of training camp and preseason. But when he finally made his debut in December, he looked completely behind the curve, starting only 1 game in his entire rookie season. There were flashes in year 2, but by 2009, the wheels came off. He finished dead last in the league in nearly every major passing category, including a completion percentage below 50%. He was benched in November as coaches grew tired of his lack of preparation and declining performance. The breaking point came in 2010 when Russell showed up to minicamp significantly overweight. After a poor showing, the Raiders did the unthinkable. They released their #1 overall pick just 3 years into his deal. Despite multiple workouts and comeback attempts, his reputation for poor work ethic meant he would never play another NFL snap. JaMarcus Russell is the reason the NFL now has a rookie salary scale. He's a reminder that in this league, a rocket arm is worthless if you don't have the heart or work ethic to match it. He walked away with millions, but left behind a legacy that every scout still fears today. He was the ultimate safe pick, a 6'7" mountain of a man who looked like he'd anchor the Dolphins line for 15 years. But for Jake Long, the only thing stronger than his pass block was the string of bad luck that ended his career. Coming out of Michigan at #1 overall, Long was an immediate superstar. By year 4, he had 4 Pro Bowls and an All-Pro nod under his belt, missing only 2 games and looking like a lock for the Hall of Fame. But after signing a massive deal with the Rams in 2013, his body began to fight back. A torn ACL. He was out for the season, and then in a devastating blow, tore the exact same ligament midway through 2014. But even after being released and playing just 11 snaps in Atlanta, Long refused to quit on the game. In 2016, the Vikings gave him one last shot to stabilize their line. He was starting to find his rhythm again, but midway through the season, he would end up rupturing his Achilles tendon. At that moment, everyone knew that they were seeing the end of a legendary talent. Long announced his retirement in early 2017, admitting his heart wanted to play, but his body was done. He walked away at just 31 years old, a player who was Jonathan Ogden great in his prime, but just simply couldn't escape the injured list. Jake Long isn't a bust, he's a tragedy. He gave the NFL 9 seasons of elite effort, proving that while you can be the #1 overall pick, you can never be bigger than the game's physical toll. To this day, he remains one of the greatest what-if careers for a tackle in league history. Our final #1 overall pick was the last of a dying breed, the final #1 overall pick to sign a mega contract before the rookie wage scale changed the league forever. But for Sam Bradford, the money was guaranteed. The health, however, was anything but. Out of Oklahoma, Bradford was a surgeon. He signed a staggering $78 million rookie deal and immediately delivered, winning Rookie of the Year while throwing for 3,500 yards. The Rams thought they had finally found their successor to Kurt Warner. The flashes of brilliance were there, but so were the high ankle sprains and brittle knee injuries. But things went from bad to worse in 2013 and 2014.
Motion at the top of your screen by Austin. Bradford looking left, fires, and it's incomplete. Sam Bradford down, and everybody with the Rams has got to be saying, oh no.
Bradford taking up and will go out of bounds, and an injured player. Bradford is down, out of bounds.
Bradford suffered back-to-back ACL tears in the same knee, forcing him to miss nearly 2 full seasons in his prime. After a quick stop in Philly, Bradford landed in Minnesota and looked like a new man. In 2016, he set the NFL single-season record by completing 71.6% of his passes. Even with a shaky offensive line, Bradford proved that his arm was still one of the most accurate in the game. The comeback was short-lived though. His knees, worn down by multiple surgeries, finally gave out in 2017. He tried one last stand in Arizona in 2018, but after just 3 games of poor play, he was benched for rookie Josh Rosen and released mid-season, never to sign with another team ever again. Sam Bradford walked away with over $130 million in career earnings, making him one of the highest paid players to never start a playoff game. He remains a legend of the pre-cap era, a man with Hall of Fame accuracy whose body simply wouldn't let him reach the summit.